Yeah, the backwards compatibility is interesting. I wonder if so that what that tells me is that this stream is not like a stereoscopic video stream. It's like probably actually sending your persona like as a 3D model and then like live rendering it. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, if it was a stereo stream, there'd be no difference with like what version you're at. You'd just be decoding a stereo video. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Okay, who has any experience being like a guidance counselor or working in like summer camps or something?
Well, we are live. Okay, so now we're live on I think Twitch and YouTube. Just so people know. So yeah, just we are now in the public record. So if maybe for the activity, if you guys go to, I'm at EYC on Twitter. If you guys want to tweet out the live stream, that would be awesome. So we can get some folks coming in, asking questions, and all of that good jazz. Cool, guys. And also it'd be good to check the audio. Actually, the audio is not going to work. So let me do this. There we go. Now the audio should be working okay. Okay, yeah, we're live on Twitch and YouTube. YouTube is always a little tricky. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a good. I'm getting some good stuff from there. Tell me about how did you think of getting that started, and what was the sort of the impetus before we go do intros and stuff. So just yeah, how was your? Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm.
And they probably most people. I think Robert Scoble like retweeted something that I said, and that unfortunately brought hundreds of new submissions where like none of them responded to the question. Where it's like a really simple question. It's like, all right, do you like what SKU do you have, just to make sure you're like not a bot? And yeah, so I keep letting people in, but you know, it. Some people are clearly bots. Some people don't seem to really engage on Twitter, so it doesn't really make sense to put them in a group where they're not going to be engaging with people. And then other people have been really great and have been contributing great stuff. So yeah, it's been a success so far.
Nice. Can you, this is, I should know the answer to this, but if you tweet in a community like that, how does that where does that interface with the For You or the followings, or is that exclusive to that group?
Good question. So whenever you engage with a group, there's a checkbox at the bottom that says share with your followers. So
I think it's awesome. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear and see
Yes.
me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Do I look 3D or not? I guess it
You
depends on the.
do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all. Nice to see you. Good to be live on the internets right now with you lovely folks. Yeah, maybe we'll just dive into intros. Yeah, let's dive into intros. Maybe Nima, since you're on a roll, let's go with you first.
Hi everyone, I'm Nima. I'm the director of product at Leia. I've been in the VR industry for a little over a decade now. I've worked on VR games, AR.
Oh no, did we lose
I
Nima?
think we
Oh
lost
no.
them.
Oh man. I heard a decade of AR VR games. Of course, I talked to him before in a previous live stream. He's back.
I am back. Sorry, what was the last thing you guys heard? What did I say?
We heard decade of making games in AR and VR. So that was
Yes.
the
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I worked on the Epson Vario AR glasses. Then I worked at Within on the Wonderscope app and the Within app, which is kind of like the Netflix of VR. And then Wonderscope was an AR kit app that was pretty successful, won a BAFTA. They went on to get bought by Facebook for $500 million for their Supernatural application. And then I've
Mhm.
been working in 3D for the last 5 years, and I work at the world's leading 3D company called Leia. We make lots of AI that turns anything from 2D to 3D, including new dev tools that we're going to put out for Vision Pro, which I'm really excited about, but also the best 3D displays. So if you're looking for 3D displays so that you don't have to put a headset on while you're working with spatial media, we're the company to talk to. But yeah, that's my intro.
Amazing. Yeah, good to see you again. All right, so I'll just go down the line of who I see. So perhaps, yeah, let's go with Michael next.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I think the only actual familiar face is Nima, so nice to meet everybody else. Um, yeah, so my name is Michael. I've been in XR for about a decade now. I transitioned to tech after working in music for a few years, and the DK2 came out, and I was just hooked. And yeah, that was back in 2014, and I've been in XR since. I'm a developer. I worked on kind of like my stack is Unity, Unreal, as well as a lot of WebGL and WebXR. Did a lot of freelancing early on. Then in 2017, I joined Magic Leap, which at the time was a very fun company to work for. Stuck around for about a year and a half. Then worked at a local Seattle startup called Pluto that did a lot of telepresence stuff and some cool multi-app experiments based on WebXR back in like right before COVID. And then about a year and some ago joined Disney Studios. And I now work at a team called the Immersive Production Technology team. We work on tools, we work on experiences. We recently shipped or helped ship Disney Plus for the Apple Vision Pro, which was a really fun project, a long time in the making that when I joined was already well underway. So yeah, I got to see some aspects of it. It was fascinating. And yeah, it's that's where I am right now. Sorry, I'm a bit rambly. It was I'm a new father, and the baby decided that not so much with the sleep last night. So if I go off on a tangent, I'll try to edit myself. But yeah, that's me.
Congratulations, by the way. That's
Thank
awesome.
you very much. And yeah, nice to meet you all. Amanda, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name's Amanda. I've been working in VR since I guess I'd say 2014. I joined Oculus out of college, and when I was there, I'm a software engineer, and I worked on the Gear VR first. I did Oculus Go, Oculus Quest, Oculus Link, Oculus AirLink. Now I'm an independent developer, and I've been working on the Stitcher VR port for Quest.
Sounds good. Were you in Irvine?
No, I was in Dallas.
That's why we didn't know each other. Yeah, so I was on the early Oculus team as well. John Carmack sat in my seat the second day I worked there, and I had a 40-minute conversation with him about VR
In
on my
Irvine.
second day, which was great. But that was when he was visiting. He was visiting from Dallas. So for those who don't know, the Dallas team was John Carmack and his crew. So yeah, but I know all the early Oculus folks. But yeah, good to see a former fellow colleague.
Nice.
Cool. Maybe Adam, you want to go next?
Sure. I have not been in the VR industry or XR or anything for very long. This is my my start in it, really. So Kevin, who's also here, we were working on a mobile game, and when we heard the Vision Pro was coming out, we started went to a few developer labs and started thinking about things we want to build. and just recently, the thing we're working on is a way to run Godot games on Vision Pro. And Kevin can probably go into that a little bit more. And yeah, so
That's
right now
awesome.
we're basically working on the tooling and working on some games.
Super cool. Amazing. All right, so we'll go to Kevin next.
Yeah. So I'm Kevin. Yeah, I've been in virtual reality for a long time too. Like I used to work for a studio called Scatter in New York, or work with them as a freelancer, and had a lot of fun shipping like VR documentaries. And then yeah, for a while I worked with Looking Glass Factory in New York too, and they make a cool holographic display. Got to work on a bunch of fun projects with them. And yeah, just generally have been a game developer for a long time too. So it's been super fun to work with Adam on OS game. Sort of learn that was our first foray into, or my first foray into like iOS as a platform. And then yeah, it's been super fun to take Godot to Vision Pro, and it's super exciting to work on the tooling there.
I have so many questions on that, but I'll stick to the intros. But man, yeah, I mean, we'll get to that point. But let's see. Oh, I got to bring you guys down to get to eye level. That's interesting. So what's weird is, speaking of experiences, by the way, this live streaming, and thanks for taking part in this experiment, because there are so many issues with live streaming on Mac. Number one, in general, like live streaming doesn't work great on Mac. And then number two, trying to live stream on Mac with Vision Pro. So what's interesting is I'm seeing you through my OBS here, like meaning through the pass through, but then I realized that I put you guys up there so I could see my OBS. So I'm a little bit tripped out about which place to look through. But anyway, yeah. So I'm Eugene Chung. So been in VR for quite a bit now. I guess over a decade. Was part of the early Oculus team, based out of Irvine, and while I was there, I was director of film and media, and I co-created something called Oculus Story Studio, which created some of the first VR films. I brought some of my old colleagues from Pixar, where I was before, and we created stuff like, like Henry and some other things that, was some of the first stories in VR. After this, tiny company called Facebook came and acquired us, I created my own studio called Penrose to create, my own stories that I write and direct. So I've had 3 films: Rose and I in Sundance, Alamet in that was a Tribeca Film Festival, it was a red carpet world premiere, and my latest was Arden's Wake, which starred Academy Award winner Alicia Vikander. So that was quite a pleasure and a thrill to create. And now, like with every VR headset that I get, when it was, even got the early Gear VR after the announcement, I would put, the headset through its paces. Was one of the first people, I think, to take it on planes, and have a stewardess yell at me for wearing, this toy, take the toy off your head. And now doing the same thing with Vision Pro. So I guess the latest thing, I shared this in the past live stream, but I did go skiing with it last weekend, and that video kind of blew up. I didn't expect it to, but it got like 430,000 views on X. A lot of people who thought it was cool, and a lot of haters as well. So I'm apparently now an Apple Vision Bro, which crypto bros are out, Apple Vision Bros are in, which yeah, is a little cringy, but it is what it is, I guess. So. Yeah, so I mean, so many things to talk about. I mean, I think Michael, you're the one who suggested keeping like topics and stuff like that. I didn't realize that we'd have, this sort of level of technical prowess on this group, because I'm actually meeting, most of you for the first time. So maybe we actually keep to technical. Before we were talking about kind of high level, what does Vision Pro mean for society, et cetera. But like, yeah, I mean, if someone's trying to adapt Godot, we can dive into that. We can dive into what's happening with Unreal, Unity, just yeah, anything that floats people's fancies. So yeah, maybe the first question, I'll ask an easy one before we dive into the deep end. Just yeah, how are people general experiences been? Kind of like developing on Vision Pro, if you guys are developing, and or just what's it like using it, right? That's kind of been an easy layup. So yeah, whoever wants to jump in on that, feel free to.
I mean, I have the least to add here because I'm a PM, not a dev. So I think basically, when the beta first came out, I updated my Mac. I got Xcode going. I was able to build super easily. I love the templates that are available in Xcode. It feels a lot faster based on my experience building stuff in Unity and Unreal. It seems way faster to just like hit a button, open the template, build, and just have it running in the simulator or have it running in the headset. Obviously, later on, once you have the build settings in Unity and Unreal set up, it might be similar, but just like from zero to getting it working, it seems a little bit easier. on Xcode. And then, unfortunately, when 1.0 came out, they stopped supporting Intel Macs. So now my Mac doesn't work for dev anymore. So I tried to go build something, and I opened up my old project, and the project just said, you need a Apple Silicon Mac to be able to develop. So that's my experience. It's kind of positive at first, and I would say now it's very negative because I don't want to buy a new $2,000 computer after buying a $3,500 face computer. So that's my 2 cents.
But man, dude, Intel Macs are so old, ancient history, man. You know, like these since M1, I have just so loved my Macs. I mean, like the fan noise, even just little quality of life stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing, you know, I mean, it chugs through the most demanding of tasks like editing. It doesn't run Unreal well, but also I think that's less to do with the power of the chip. I mean, this M2 has 24 gigs of unified memory, right? Which is pretty good. I mean, the 4090 by NVIDIA has 24 gigs of VRAM, which is different from unified memory, but still, you know, like it's amazing that this little chip is running on that. So yeah, I mean, definitely a big fan. So if you ever choose to get one, I'm very supportive of that.
To give full context, I am one of like the 5 people on Earth that uses an eGPU, and so the thing with my Intel Mac is that I actually switch between Mac OS and Windows, and my AMD 6900 XT works on both flawlessly.
Yeah.
And so for me, Unreal actually does run really well on my Mac.
Wow.
But that's like a very unique, specific situation, which is the other reason why I don't want to switch to an Apple Silicon, because I have one device that kind of does it all. It's like magic. It's portable, and then when I plug it in the eGPU, boom, I've got this like powerhouse at home that I can do Windows development and do Mac OS development on a single machine. But now I can't do Vision Pro Dev, so a little bit disappointing. But I'll probably buy an Apple Silicon Mac in the next month or two.
So actually, a question on that: 2019 MacBook Pro 16-inch. That's the last Intel Mac that I had it fully maxed out. I was considering getting an eGPU for these exact reasons, but the problem was less the. I mean, do you have a Thunderbolt connection? Because I heard even a Thunderbolt connection, it's not even that the GPU itself can be powerful, but the actual data transfer rate is actually the limiting factor. So is that actually the case?
Yeah. So it's totally true, especially for games. I only get about 80% of the power off the GPU, but a 6900 XT with the amount of PSU that it has, like the amount of wattage it's pulling, is like really, really powerful compared to like any laptop chip, right? So even with 80% of my total power, that's still really good. But for things like ML and things like video rendering, for example, the bandwidth really isn't that big of an issue, right? That's only for games and being able to get like super fast connections back and forth.
Yeah.
So for like video rendering, I mean, I chew through things. Obviously, there's a massive like wart attached to my computer to do it, but like I don't think my performance is like any worse than a standard like MacBook that you could buy today with Apple Silicon. But yeah, there's pros and cons. I don't think most people need this, but I'm someone who likes using Windows as well, and I like having everything on one computer with, my partitions are accessible, like my Mac OS partitions accessible from Windows and vice versa. I have like third-party tools that let me like read those file systems. It's a very unique situation, but I think that for me it was really good, and I'm just disappointed to have to finally give that up and do something else.
Has Michael spoken yet about getting Windows running in Apple Vision Pro as a screen share yet?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
That was today's mini like warm up thing. I was like, there's the whole situation where I have my Disney machine, and then I have my private, like my civilian MacBook Pro, and then my Disney machine is a MacBook, and then I also have a Disney desktop, and there are too many computers. And like my personal machine, because this is connected to my personal iCloud, I have, stuff like screen sharing and screen extension and all of that connected to my personal machine. So everything is already jumbled up, and, given all of that, I just wanted to see the capabilities with the PC. And the sunshine moonlight combo has been making the rounds, and it's great. I didn't do much more than wire it up and mirror my screen, but it's effective. But while I have the talking stick before passing it on, I just wanted to say that, Eugene, to your framing of the conversation as a lot of kind of like technical firepower here, I think absolutely, and a rarefied company in that regard. But also what I love about the people in this particular forum is that everybody's treading, and this is going to start off like as a cliche, and just bear with me, but everybody's treading the like creative, technical spectrum here, and everybody based on the sometimes little I know, but what I know of your background, like you're all just fearless when it comes to adopting these new things and seeing what can be done with them. And sometimes that means, that verges more on the side of storytelling, and sometimes that verges more on the side of like streaming XR frames, over the air like black magic. But it's all more than ever like, if we think of a developer as like, I don't know, I always think of like a Java person who like does also SQL and like works in a cubicle, and like I don't know, that like title aside, I no longer know what developer means. I look at Nima and he's more like, just based on what you said now and also my familiarity with you, like you're more tech savvy than a lot of developers I know, like and everybody here, especially the folks I know, but even just hearing you speak, like you're all just fearless, and I just admire that more than ever. That kind of like chasm between technical savvy and creativity is really, and again, I'm so sorry I sound like an ad, but it does feel like it's dissipating, and maybe in XR more than anywhere else. And I just love this. I just love that somebody can lead with like, well, I'm not a developer, but, and then just like deep dive into like the nether regions of eGPUs, and it's a fairly unique community in that regard, I think.
I so agree. I'm so supportive of that. It's incredible to see like the Renaissance minds that, this industry tends to attract. And actually, generally speaking, I think that's true of like early days of other industries, right? You get the nerds before. So like, I've been in different types of industries before, for other frontier tech. And, one of the bad things that's happened to VR is the trough of disillusionment, right? Where things have not been as, it's been overhyped, but now AI is quite overhyped, and crypto is starting to come back. I mean, Bitcoin just passed 50K again today per coin. But like, because there's no money, let me put it this way. Now that there's no money, it's kind of cool because the nerds who really love it are around. And, that's, I mean, like if I just be really blunt about it, I just love it. And I always say, bet on the nerds, right? Like, definitely for the future. I mean, I think still we have a long way to go, but it's, it's just a total pleasure. So yeah, what other follow-ons, would love to hear about, people's development experiences, and just kind of what they're excited about with Vision Pro.
Maybe this is actually my first FaceTime, and it's way like I like wasn't exactly sure what to expect, and I'm finding it to be like better than I expected. Like it's really good. And like I'm standing up right now, and like I feel like that's really comfortable. Like I'm standing in the bedroom, and it just occurred to me that if my partner comes and says, "Hey, I need to like come in here," it's not like an awkward like I gotta pick up my laptop, walk to the other room, whatever. It's like I'll just move, no problem. So like this actual experience that we're having right now, I'm like, this is great. I can see this is actually really useful and exciting.
Yeah. Last time Nemo was here, he was talking about just lying down and enjoying the conversation that way. It's very
exactly.
flexible.
I was switching between laying down and getting up, and at the end of the call, I was like, "Did you guys even know I was doing that?" And everyone was like, "No, we had no idea." And I love that. It's the ability to not have to worry about what you look like, and then still be able to express yourself at whatever angle or position that you happen to be in. It's really kind of magical. I hate to say the word, but it's kind of awesome, unique.
There was on that point, there was a Oculus Connect. I forgot there was, or one of these Facebook, maybe it was F8, but the proclamation was VR is not a competitor, to like screens or TVs. It's a competitor to real estate, right? I actually fundamentally agree with that. I mean, even before they proclaimed it, like that's, I think, the correct prediction. But I'd never seen a device where I thought, oh, that's going to be true. Like, I don't see the path there. Like, I'm like, oh, maybe it's like 10 years from now. But now with Vision Pro and this experience, I think that I see like the blocking and tackling to getting to that future, right? It's like, well, you always know theoretically we're going to get there, but like, I did like a long call. I've been doing a lot of business calls in Vision Pro with other people. I mean, I'm lucky to work with other people with Vision Pros. Like I did a call with Alex yesterday for a while. I've been talking to some of my colleagues with Vision Pros, and it's actually kind of great. Like just from a pure, like it's better than a Zoom call for sure. It is kind of heavy. I don't like that. But it's like very effective. Like you feel much more present. Like seeing Michael in 3D right now, seeing you all in the way that it's just so different from a Zoom call. I know the people who are seeing this on the live stream, we'll see like uncanny valley faces, and like, oh, but it's just, you can't convey this experience. Like presence is real here, right? Like it's, like now I just want to, like, even for VR teams, like I'm like advising, it's like AI startup, and I'm like, they're thinking about, oh, remote's gonna suck. I'm like, well, maybe just get all of them. I mean, with all your AI money, like, invest in some Vision Pros. You can inference. I mean, with 24 gigs of unified memory, you can probably run some inference for local models on here as well, by the way. But just get Vision Pros, and like, it changes the nature of remote work, I think. Sorry, yeah. But,
Absolutely. And it, I think one particular fun way to watch the UX paradigms evolve or mature, even if a little bit, is I think even up to a few years ago, and particularly I remember during COVID, VR telepresence was very hot, and like, with Horizons and with Workrooms and all of that, and the notion that like you get swept away from your, earthly existence to be in a cubicle that is made of low poly planes to talk to your office mates. And, no shade, right? We got to try these old things to like graduate through them, and there's tech limitations and hardware limitations. But I do think for me, the quantum leap in like just joy or, just functionality and comfort is being in pass through, and in good pass through. And, being able to chat with all of you and not have it be like completely removing my context from my day-to-day life, and be able to pet my cat or even see what's on Slack, not to overly multitask, but I don't think I was aware of the huge burden of just, telepresence necessitating VR until I started doing it without it. And I was like, oh, I would infinitely prefer to just see, fun, like volumetric heads rendered in high quality in my room than go away to the quote unquote metaverse. So for me, that's the game changer.
That's awesome.
Defy distance was the Quest like tagline for quite a while, and I think that, defying distance is definitely an end goal, but to your point, I think that we are defying distance right now. Like it's happening, we don't have to beat, I think that on some level, these devices do have to beat smartphones and laptops and tablets in very specific verticals. But the most important thing is they have to beat atoms, right? Like they have to beat, the ability, even if like some non-0% of the time, I don't have to get in my car anymore and commute, this gives me back all the value I could possibly need, right? Like, what is it like? Think of like, if you can reduce like 3 or 4 weeks of commute on of like your year, that automatically gives you back like half the cost of a Vision Pro in just gas, right? Depending on whether you live in California, at least, right? So I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's awesome. Yeah, would love to hear from sort of the other folks as well. So we just get before we dive into other topics. But I think Kevin and Amanda. Yeah, what are your thoughts about general impressions? How's things been?
I actually haven't developed yet because I also don't have a compatible PC that I've been thinking about getting one the last month. There's their hardware left. But the one thing I was thinking about is there are a lot of things here that we're talking about, like kind of getting in a call with people that I think were possible in VR before, but I didn't do as regularly as I'm doing on Vision Pro. And I was kind of thinking about what that is. And what's interesting to me is I think that like the platform creators often, I think that like Meta has suggested that they wanted a similar vision to this, but I think that when I went and used it, I would always like play Beat Saber or, a game like that. And I'm trying to think like, why is there such a difference on Quest between what I do with the platform, what they're saying the platform is capable of that isn't on Vision Pro? Is that because there isn't the content that I want on Vision Pro, or is that because they've executed the first party experience in a much more attractive way?
Yeah.
Because I'm watching, I'm watching videos, I'm watching things on screens. That's something that I'm sure some director at Facebook wanted me to do many years ago. I'm, getting into calls and talking to people and doing things with people. Whereas, when I put on my Quest every day, but I do something totally different with it.
How long were you at Meta, by the way, post acquisition?
I'm 2022.
Oh wow, so you were there for quite a while. So you saw the whole So, so I feel like, someone said Defy Distance. That was Quest 1, and then the CV one was Experience the Impossible. I remember we had all these like little taglines, right? So the this has been something I've been thinking about for so long, right? It's like, from the moment Zuck stood in the Irvine fridge saying, "Hey, we're buying the company," right? Which and all of us were just very confused about what was going on. I think it was like, wait, is there a partnership? Because they said the words on the slide, which it was a very fast deal. So it's like we're partnering with Facebook, but it seemed to be about connecting, like basically connecting the world, right? Facebook's own motto went from move fast and break stuff to I don't remember the exact words, but connecting everyone around the world. So
Making the world more open and connected.
there we go. So making the world more open and connected. So, but there seems to be the disconnect. There was a Verge article written by Addie Robertson that I talked about in one of the prior ones, which was, does Facebook know that it's a gaming company, right? Does Meta know it's a video game company? And it doesn't seem to know that, right? And to people's points, I think VR is great, but it's like Horizon Workrooms, I do know people who worked on it and who said, this is, not a great product, right? And you can just see it in the numbers. You can see it in the reviews, like literally in Meta Store, the reviews for Horizon Workrooms ain't so great. So I guess what is that cognitive dissonance, right? Like, and how did Apple, and to your point, Amanda, how did Apple get it right? Or is getting it right? I think there's still a lot to be done, but it's getting it more in that direction.
Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, for me, it's a big piece is just the ecosystem kind of just works. It's that Apple magic. I'm sitting here, I'm visiting Los Angeles right now, and I brought my Mac Studio, and I've just been working in the headset with that as a monitor. For me, like the fact that they didn't come out as a gaming headset, but just as an Apple product that works is kind of amazing. And I was super skeptical that it would work in that way, but it generally, with all there's definitely like some jank and some data issues, but for me, it's surprising how much it kind of is just familiar in a way that I don't have to think too hard about. And yeah, I don't know. The Facebook stuff is interesting. It's interesting to hear the Zuck video and the sort of like retort that he's got.
What do you think of the Zuck?
I really don't pick sides in this kind of thing, because to me it's just amazing that we make this tech at all. But for me, it's definitely, having spent a lot of time in the Vive, like this is I feel a different level of comfort just in a work day. Like Adam and I have been developing a game, so spending 4 or 5 hours in an afternoon looking at the game together in the headset, it's still exhausting, but it's possible. And I didn't feel that way before with the Quest.
We actually yesterday, Kevin and I, we ended up working at WeWork, which is not normal for us. We just needed a bigger space for a little bit, and we both work on Mac Studios, so we were carrying these big bricks in. But then we also we both brought our Visions, and we were both working in our headsets probably for like 4 hours. So like developing and trying the thing we were building. So
that's awesome. How did that? I guess first off, did you get weird looks? Like, I'm curious, what was that like?
Yeah,
sociologically.
Yeah, the glass windows. Yeah, for sure, people were sort of walking by. I mean, I didn't hear anyone giving us shade or anything, but like, it was. I feel the embarrassment. Like, I still would not. Would you guys do it on a plane yet? Like,
I'm going on a plane. I'm getting on a plane this weekend. I'm definitely going to bring it, for sure. But
do you just constantly get people coming up to you and asking like, "Can I try? What's up?" Or is it like,
I haven't a single person mentioned anything when I used it on a plane. I will say that wasn't the case back when because this isn't my first headset I've used on a plane. I did Gear VR, I did Oculus Go, and especially with Gear VR, which was probably I was doing it like 2015, 2016, 2017. There were like times where, and it just felt really rude. Like I'm in the middle of a video and someone just taps me on the shoulder, and I think like, oh, is something happening? I take the headset off and they're like, "What is that? What are you doing?" And I'm like, watching a movie that but you're like distracting me, bro. Like I'm just like, oh, it's a VR headset. They're like, wow, really? Like, tell me about that. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I want to watch my movie.
A lot of people seem to comment on one similar, very specific thing, which was that TSA employees hadn't been confused by their headset or been verbal about it for many years, and Apple Vision Pro was the first time in a long time when they started getting called out about that.
So true. Yeah, I had my Apple Vision Pro carrying case. Like, it was in its case, and the TSA guy, just like really loudly, he's like, "Wow, is that the Apple Vision Pro? You got one?" And I was like, "Dude, please do not tell the entire airport I have this expensive thing with me. I'm not trying to like stick out like a sore thumb. I just want to get through security." But he just kept asking questions. Yeah, it was pretty annoying.
You know, Nima, the same thing happened to me 6 months ago. I was traveling and passing my Quest Pro through customs, and the guy asked, "Wow, is that the Apple Vision Pro?" And I'm like, "Yep." Why not? At that point. Wow. So there's at least one guy walking around thinking it's a very different form factor and so forth.
That's
Probably
funny.
haunted by it.
Well, on Sunday last week, I took it skiing, and 3 people, which is not very much, did stop during the ski runs themselves and say, "Oh, is that what I think it is?" So that was interesting. It's actually less than I thought. Like, I was actually just skiing fine on the slopes, and like I was on a, one of these what is it called, ski lifts, and like nobody thought anything else. I mean, I guess
Well, they
it is.
kind of look like ski goggles. They look more like
Yeah,
ski goggles than just about anything else.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. I think the creepiest part, and I'll tell you, in après ski, so when you sit around fireplaces, drinking mulled wine or whatever, a lot more people came up and said, "What is that?" And I think it was the eyesight, the really freaky like eyes that come out, because that just made it more obvious this was not like a regular pair of ski goggles. But yeah, I think that's a good point, Amanda, that like the one place. Well, my conclusion, by the way, in that video, which I said up front, was this is not good for skiing. The 12 millisecond latency was actually fine. Photon to photon latency on this is 11 milliseconds. Someone tested yesterday, actually. So Apple advertises 12 milliseconds. It's actually 11. That's fine for sports like this, but it just wasn't useful. And it wasn't useful because, like what I thought was on a ski lift in travel mode, even, you could like, answer emails, do phone calls, and do all that stuff, but you can't, like, because if you have variable velocity, right, or like torque or something, so if you're on a subway or if you're in a car even and the car turns, or you're on a ski lift, the thing just keeps, crashing out. So it's so not useful, right, in those situations, right, where you could, potentially do work, in the 10 minutes you're riding the ski lift, but yeah, it just doesn't work that way. So anyway, hopefully the plane will be better. I hope.
Has anyone found an unexpected great use of the headset? Like, I don't know. I was going to say like in the shower, which I know would not be a good idea. But has anyone been in a situation where they're like, "Oh, I actually can't believe this is a good use of the headset"?
I heard the whole cutting onions one, and then I tested and it didn't actually work.
Okay.
That is not as good of a use case, because you actually do still feel the onion juice. I mean, I'd say movie watching. Movie watching is like, I know that they advertise that, and everyone, including myself, was like, "Do you really want to do that in a headset?" But it's such a better experience than every other headset that's come before it that, yes, I do want to watch 3D movies in this headset. It is a better experience than my 3D projector. It has the social telepresence. So it's not a super unexpected use case, but it's definitely a use case where I was like, I didn't think that that's a killer app. 3D video for VR headsets, like VR headsets can do so much more. But no, it really is a killer app for me. It's amazing.
Yeah. Like we've all tried big screen, and I think we know what that experience is like. But something about doing it in the Apple Vision Pro, it's a special experience. I love watching 3D movies in here, and then you're up on Mirror Lake on Mount Hood, and you have the reflection on the water. You're at Joshua Tree, and you get the light radiating off the rocks everywhere. It's just a really wonderful experience.
And a shameless plug that all of the Marvel library has been especially remastered for the Vision Pro. So if it looks crisper than previous 3D iterations you might be familiar with, it is.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by the 3D on the Disney Plus movies. It seems like it's definitely more 3D than I ever remember in the movies.
Yeah.
I also love that you only need one Disney Plus account. If you have like 2 users and you do FaceTime and do SharePlay, and the 2 users on the same Disney Plus account, it'll just work, which
cool.
I thought was a pretty magical experience. So basically, if you want, instead of buying 2 Disney Plus subscriptions, just buy 2 Apple Vision Pros. It's not that much. It's super affordable. It's a great experience.
It'll pay for itself within a decade. Yeah,
exactly.
That's fantastic. I will say one thing, and I've always been, and this is my Magic Leap bias, but I've always been a big proponent of like, well, if it's not volumetric, why do it in XR, right? Like screens or whatever. But one case where I felt like, oh, spatial content and stereoscopy has nothing to do with why this is awesome right now is taking videos and taking photos and having that whole like sci-fi trope of like truly your own lived memories relived spatially, as opposed to holding a phone. And it's incredible what the POV difference, as minute as it might seem, does. I was like petting my cat, and I was able to pet my cat with both hands, right? And like, I don't really do this with humans yet because that's weird, but I have taken videos and photos of my cat in this thing, and I was petting him, and then I was rewatching it, and the sense of presence there that had nothing to do with depth, it was just the first person perspective, really blew me away. I've never really used a camera in that way before, and that was incredible.
And that
The
was
Snap
part of
Specs-
the original, that was part of the original Apple Vision Pro demo in stores too. And I saw like multiple people like kind of tearing up when they got to the part where they were reliving some stranger's birthday party. And I wonder if that's, obviously Apple recognized that that's a very poignant moment. And I wonder if that's specifically a selling point, because it's almost I think like FOMO. It's like, if you don't get this now, you're gonna miss out on capturing your daughter's birthday in this incredibly profound way.
Yeah.
So Snap Specs 3 let you capture the VR 180 off the glasses, and then the next gen Snap Specs also let you do 3D video capture, just kind of similar to what you get here. But what Magic Leap and what the next gen Snap Specs do, which I want to see in a future OS version of Vision Pro, is they would actually composite the virtual objects and the video at the same time. So right now, I think the biggest weakness with Vision Pro is the spatial photo and video capture is its own unique application, its own unique context, and it takes away all of your other apps. Where what I want to be able to do is I want to be running an app, running a volume, maybe engaging with someone else, and then have all that composited into a single spatial video. I think that's a pretty big weakness that, Magic Leap had that day one. It was 2D, but it let you composite everything in a single video. And, other people have done this, and so it's a little disappointing that Vision Pro doesn't have that yet. But I really hope it comes in the future.
This is, and I imagine a few folks might be wanting to chime in here, but this is very counterintuitive UX-wise, but you can do this. It's just, it lives in a different place. But like if you click the top, what they call the top button, which by the way, terrible name in my opinion, but if you click the top button, you immediately goes away and all of that. But you can actually use kind of like the paradigm of like screen capture, and then at least in my experience, I might be missing something, but I've been able to capture videos, spatial content, everything else, composited on my view using the screen capture.
But the screen capture is 2D. So you only get one or the other. So when you do the spatial photos and videos, it's 3D. Yeah. And then if you do the screen recording, it composites everything, but it's 2D. But I want those both to be there together. So I guess the only other device that actually did that was the next gen Snap Specs, which is not a commercially available product. But that one would give you a true 3D video of all the objects composited on top of a 3D video. So it all was like a true spatial capture, if you will.
So what you can do is you can do the screen capture, which is 2D, as you said, with basically spatial video of the outside. But I think what you're referring to, which you cannot do, is get a 3D capture of your view inside Vision Pro. So I have done that. It's kind of interesting. You get the screen recording, and then when you do the spatial video in the screen recording and in your headset, it goes a little black from here. And so there's that. One thing about spatial video, and maybe this is because of the way the tracking works, you can't really move very fast. So, for example, I was in a FaceTime call, and I was showing my screen, 4K view to somebody on FaceTime, and they saw me live streaming my skiing down the mountain. But the spatial video stops if you go more than walking just a little bit. So there's just some note of limitations. A side note here, guys, by the way, I think I got on X, I think I found all of you on X. I hope I didn't tag someone random, but if you guys don't mind looking at your notifications and reposting this live stream, we're getting some cool questions and some reactions, but it'd be nice to get some reposts on it so we can get some more people and people listening in. But the question that I have maybe to tee up is the Zuck reaction. That seems to be one of the big questions that we're getting, reactions we're getting. What do we think of Zuck's reaction yesterday?
I thought it was a little bit cringe. I don't know what he was trying to accomplish with it. And I was surprised. I posted about this on Twitter, and a lot of people were responding I don't know. I thought he came across very human. I thought this was a great way to point out all the benefits over the Quest 3. And all I could think of the whole time he was talking was neither Zuck nor Tim Cook are the right faces for this emerging medium. And we really need a more youthful, human, charismatic energy to talk about this stuff in a way that isn't just going to be interesting to tech nerds. But I could be totally wrong. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks.
I think it would have been better if he had said nothing. I think that anybody that comes out and has to say, this is why my product is better, makes it clear that that's what they're thinking about. And it just seems very weak to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I wonder what he thought was the point. Who's the choir that's being preached to with that video?
Do you think that it was planned? Do you think that they actually had a PR team that strategized it, or might it have been off the cuff?
Right.
Someone framed it as they thought this was Zuck kind of rallying the troops and trying to get everyone who, has been following and supporting Quest and certainly can't afford an Apple Vision Pro to still feel good about their purchase or, development pipeline, whatever they might be. However they're invested in the Meta ecosystem, they thought this was a way to build up their satisfaction in that.
Well, I will say, no matter what the video was or no matter what he said, it's not going to get T-Pain to put a Quest 3 on. So,
Yeah.
I don't know that it hits it's definitely to a different audience. Let's just say that.
Nima, I think it's totally possible that your meme there might have triggered Zuck being like, I have to address this. Like, I have to go out and do a press conference.
My buddy at Apple said that he sent that meme internally, and Apple employees for like an entire day thought it was just the funniest thing on their internal Slack.
Love it.
Did you have like a VR meme subreddit? Didn't you used to have one? Wasn't that a thing?
I've had a few different things like that, but I think that I need to spend less percentages of my time trolling and spend more building. So I'm trying to move as far away from it as possible, except when something really juicy comes up.
That's fair.
Yeah, I do think that the Zuck thing. It's getting a lot of reactions on X and other places for better or worse. I do think it would have been better for him to say nothing. He certainly would be above the fray. But he's certainly not going away anytime soon. So I think, Alex, you're, just given, the voting rights shares that he has on Meta stock, of course, and things like that. So I guess we're stuck with him, right? Unless he decides to bring in another Sheryl Sandberg, right? Because, bringing a COO, if you have a successful startup, is usually a way of, replacing yourself as CEO if you want to, especially if you have that level of control. But it looks like he is like being at the helm. But yeah, it's do we agree with his fundamental premise though? The fundamental premise he started with was, I thought Meta Quest 3 would be the better value proposition, but now I, being Zuck, think that Meta Quest 3 is just the better product. I definitely agree that I think it's at 7x less the cost. I would say Meta Quest 3 is definitely a better value proposition. But do we think it's a better product? Like, who here who's used both think it's a better product? Yeah, so a lot of no's.
I haven't used the Quest 3.
Yeah, I haven't tried the Quest 3.
Yeah.
There's clear pros and cons. There's things there's actually things Quest 3 does legitimately better than the Vision Pro.
For sure.
But it's not like a straight shot. Like I'll give one very specific example to me, and I think other people have their own.
Sure.
We make ML. ML is one of the core technologies at Leia. We do high quality 2D to 3D conversion. Actually, we make the best 2D to 3D conversion in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, all of our stuff has been based on the Snapdragon SNPE framework, which is the Snapdragon Neural Processing Engine. It runs on, you can run it on the CPU, the GPU, but what you really want is you want to run it on the Qualcomm DSP. That gets you the best performance. We've built that across our Android stack. We make Android devices for a living. We also make Windows stuff that runs on NVIDIA, but let's focus on the really cool stuff that we do is real time on mobile, and that's been focused on Android. Now, it's crazy because our stuff runs on Pico 4 with an XR2, no problem, runs great. But on the Quest, it's completely locked out. They use their DSP for tracking, and I'm just completely locked out from running any of our code on it, which means we can't bring our apps or experiences to the Quest. Now, guess what? All of the neural cores on the M2 that's on the Vision Pro that we're wearing right now is fully open for developers to build whatever they want. And it's way more powerful than what a Snapdragon chip has. So if you want to create really novel ML experiences, there's clearly only one standalone headset at least, that has all the power that you would want. Because on Quest, I'd be limited to the GPU, and I could still run it, but on the GPU, the perf is really, really bad compared to the DSP. Yeah. But I would say, based on rough estimates, literally 10x the ML power on the Vision Pro than I get on the Quest, which, as I'm sure you guys know, like a full factor performance difference means there's entirely new experiences that I can do on this that I literally cannot build on a Quest. And I would love to, but that would be up to them to change their entire system to allow me to do that. And I don't think they will, because I've asked them and they've said no. So yeah.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, because some of these open source models, like the 7B models, can actually run on the latest iPhones. This thing is as M2. I mean, what do we think we could get? Like, what percentage is being used? And of course, I'm sure it depends on what apps you have open. But I mean, sure, I'm sure it could run a 7B model. I mean, maybe I'm not sure. Like, I don't know how much R1 is doing versus the M2 chip. But hopefully, if you don't have too much overloaded, maybe you can get a Mistral 7B or something to run on it. But for example, could we get Llama 2 70B running on this thing? I mean, I don't know, right? Like, what's the limit of what you could do with on-prem compute and inferencing for AI models? What do y'all think?
I think I don't have any. I haven't had a chance to dive into that, but I do know that from a graphics perspective, I've done some benchmarking of even things like checking particle effects in Unity and seeing kind of like what are the max, just like let's really kick the tires on the GPU. And I've had to revisit some ground assumptions I've always held about, graphics on a Mac versus even PC, let alone underpowered Android.
Yeah.
So I think another place where that kind of rank falls in his statement, what particularly irked me was the discussion of an open versus closed platform, words that mean less now than they ever have before. So I think that makes me revisit some of the first principle assumptions I've had about this. And I've been blown away by what the AVP can pull off graphically. And if that's any indication to how those GPUs or, whatever, I don't think they're GPUs, but how those systems might be, the M2 might be leveraged towards machine learning, then I think there's a lot of validation to do there, but there's some really interesting opportunity spaces with regards to on-device machine learning.
Is it sad that one of the things I'm really excited about thinking about the power of the M2 on here is things like emulation? Like the fact that movies are looking so great makes me think about, of course, we have Amanda here, and thank you for Citra VR and all that, but the potential of like Citra VR running an Apple Vision Pro at full 90 frames per second in a window, a little volumetric window that is alongside my other apps and experiences, that's really exciting to me. I would probably enjoy that even more than doing it in a Quest 3. Have you thought about that much, Amanda?
Sure. Yeah, it was one of the things I was thinking about when I got the Apple Vision Pro. I'm excited to see what the possibilities are. It is interesting because since so many emulators are licensed under GPL, open versus closed ecosystem becomes very concrete terminology when we talk about whether those apps are possible on a platform.
That's really interesting.
I have to hop to all hands, but this was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Eugene, and enjoy the conversation. I certainly enjoyed it.
Enjoy all the hands,
Michael.
Michael.
It's good to see you.
Goodbye.
Good to see you too. Good to see everyone.
Take care.
Going back to the Zuck thing, one thing that he said that I want to hear everyone's take on this is when he talks about Meta being an open platform and Apple being a closed platform and how they want to be the Android of VR and all that. Is there any credence to that? Or when I think about Meta, I never think of it as an open platform. It's more open than some things by comparison, but what's everyone's take on that?
I mean, I think that there's some things they do really well, and I think there's a lot of things they do really poorly. I think the fact, like, let's just look at numbers, right? Like, is there a way we can look at this objectively? And I would say the fact that in less than 2 weeks, there are now more native Vision OS apps on the official Vision OS store versus total apps on the Quest platform kind of says it all, right? Like, there is... How open can you really be when like someone else just allows everyone to build whatever they want and you don't, right? I think sideloading is very cool. It's good that sideloading exists. I don't think that there's actually, and people will hate me for this, I don't think there's that much of a difference between sideloading on Vision OS or iOS versus Android, not Android specifically Quest, because with Quest, you have to sign up for a dev account, you have to turn on developer mode, and then you can sideload. Whereas with Vision, as long as you have Xcode, you can also sideload.
True.
Now, if you want to sign stuff and get it onto the store, you need the $99 developer account. But how much of a difference is there really between just loading something through Xcode or having to set up a developer account and signing up with Quest TOS? I think there is a difference, but is the difference huge? No, is my opinion.
I think it might go back to what was said earlier in the discussion. Perhaps Zuck doesn't know that he has a video game platform. Facebook. I'm sure that, like, at a high level, if you're as high level as Mark Zuckerberg is, you would expect, yes, if Facebook's going to build a VR device, it's going to be way more open than Apple's. But there's a reason people are talking about it. I don't know if you go through the step by step for developers that it would feel open to you, or even like a general compute platform. There's a lot of things that are available on Android that aren't available on Quest.
Yeah, the only console I would say is that's more open than the Quest is Xbox. Xbox is pretty similar. It has a dev mode, and you can install stuff on the side. But actually, they require you to pay $20 to enable dev mode. So maybe Quest is actually the most open console, but it's definitely more open than Switch. It's definitely more open than PlayStation, which require specific developer hardware and accounts to be able to dev stuff. But that's only on consoles. If you're looking at like complete compute platforms, it's definitely a different story.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't qualify it by talking about consoles. He didn't even use the term. He's suggesting that it's open in general purpose like a computer, and I think that that's the thing that's hardest to defend.
Yeah. If I build an app right now for Quest to sideload it onto my Quest device, the easiest thing to do all the things Nima said, developer account, all that. I need to plug my Quest into my Windows computer and then sideload the APK. And then to open it, I have to go over into the tabs and the unknown sources and find it all there. I know, Nima, you're probably going to say you can do it wirelessly. I'm just saying it's easier to do it tethered. However, I haven't even tried. I actually can't tether my AVP because I haven't bought the little $300 dongle. So I've been building apps for Apple Vision Pro. They're all being transferred wirelessly, and they're not second-class citizens buried down in this little unknown sources tab. Right. They're right there next to Fruit Ninja and all these other things. They're front and center for everyone to see. And I don't know, something about that just feels like a better developer experience to me.
Well, I totally agree with a lot of the points here. And actually, I'd say it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation in terms of open and closed. So on the AI side, it's kind of incredible how open, Meta has been, right? Llama 2 being just fully open source. Llama 3, which should, maybe, it probably won't dethrone GPT-4, but, in its compute class, it'll probably be the best. Llama 3 will probably be the best it can get. And reportedly will get pretty close. So you have openness there, but I definitely think most VR developers who've tried to get stuff on the Quest Store, since Quest 1, where you had to go through the approval process, it's definitely become more like PlayStation. If anyone's a developer for that, we definitely did. And it was, it's a great platform, but it's, with a lot of users, but certainly not the easiest to get onto from a developer perspective. Just a lot of work to adapt Unreal Engine and things like that, or even Unity to the platform. And then of course you got to go through the whole rigmarole. So I think it's kind of both. But interestingly, back in the old Oculus days, there was this big debate. I'd say like there were people I won't name names, but I'll just say there were some people at the top that really, really wanted to be closed. And actually, to be frank with you, I supported that because in the early phases of it, now this gets into business theory about early phases of an industry, closed platforms usually winning, and then in later phases, they're being, it being open platforms. So good example, iPhone, closed platform in the beginning and has opened up more as industry has matured. So I was very unpopular for doing that, by the way. So I had a few people on the C-suite who agreed with me, and they had me be the person who went to a lot of people who, for example, came from Valve or who were PC gamers or believed in the open ecosystem, and definitely wasn't popular with that, given that was my thesis that, hey, to win, we got to create a box. At the time we called it the Oculus box, right, where everything was in it. Eventually it became the Quest. But of course, at the time we're talking about CV1 connecting to PC. So we're like, okay, we're going to connect to PC like a Steam Deck, and it's going to all come in one, right? And it's going to have the right graphics card, all that stuff. So it was a big ideological battle. But, I think, effectively the Quest and the ecosystem that was created is, I think a fairly closed platform. And to be frank, that might be to Meta's benefit, right, in terms of gaining early market share and whatnot. So I don't know if I'm going to be unpopular from the group here. I know everyone loves open. Everyone on the internet loves open stuff, but yeah.
I am certainly sympathetic to that perspective, and I think for these discussions it is really useful to make the distinction between sort of closed platforms in terms of a walled garden and closed platforms in terms of a curated store. Because I think different people fall under different sort of perspectives. There are people in VR, for instance, that would say we absolutely want an open platform. You should be able to put whatever you want on it. You shouldn't have to sign up for a developer account to do it. But we're still very worried about poisoning the well for somebody that's a first-time VR user. We don't want the New York Times to put it on and then tank it. So we should have curated lists for for new users that don't have content that's going to make people sick. And I would consider that person to be, want a very curated experience, but also want an open platform. And there are probably people on the other side that I think, in my experience, users tend to be very open in terms of wanting an ecosystem and more curated when it comes to content, and developers tend to be the opposite. Developers would like very little content curation, very little blocking them from being on the platform, but having tools for piracy detection, tools for making sure that their content is seen on the store, and different people helping them. So, but it's interesting how in these conversations we kind of conflate both, and like you said, open and closed become these very good and bad terms to talk about what you believe should happen. But VR has a long history of some people believing that curation is absolutely necessary, and if you want openness, you have to tell those people they're wrong.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting that, well, and kind of on that point, there are industries that are very contentious, where people really I'd say crypto is a very toxic industry just from culturally. I mean, it used to be a bunch of nerds. I mean, back when Bitcoin started, it was literally just a bunch of nerds who thought this was a cool technology, and then it's now become a little bit. I mean, there's still great people working in it for sure. Lots of nerds, lots of good people. I'm not trying to blanket say an industry, but what I'd say about VR is, I mean, what are the question I want to ask all of you is, what are the ideological positions to take in VR, right? Maybe open and closed is one. Like maybe Valve and Meta really are kind of like the two. Like I won't even put Apple. Maybe you got Meta and Apple on one side, and then you got Valve on the totally opposite direction. But if you look at the numbers, look who's winning, right? The closed platforms are winning. But are there any other ideological divides, in VR, or are we just a happy-go-lucky let's all support each other nerdy industry, right? Still, which I think is cool, by the way.
I would like to make the point that I do think that Valve is obviously there are different people at Valve, but I would say the people I know, a lot of them are philosophically in favor of heavy content curation, at least in terms of what we show users. Many are of the belief that if you show users just anything, they're going to be made sick, and the lack of curating good content is the reason people don't want to use VR anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why we need these expensive headsets. That's why we can't just, ship a heavily subsidized $200 headset and tell everybody that's VR.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So what's popular? I had the stats for years ago, but on that point, on Steam, what was popular in VR, this was many years ago, was Blade and Sorcery or Bonework. So there's these really violent sort of things. And I remember we were looking at that. We make little children's animations, right? And I remember somebody gave someone on the biz dev team gave the stats. It's hey, so to succeed on Steam, we have to have people do violent things. And I was well, we make that. So I mean, that's not all true. That's I'm purposely painting a very extreme picture, but I mean, even Quest picked it up, right? Blade and Sorcery, when it got ported to Quest, was really heavily marketed, right? And they were I guess this is what the people want, right? It's it again goes back to the whole, well, they want, Apple wants us working in spreadsheets in this thing, and the people want to chop up people with big swords, right? So that seems to be a disconnect.
I think that if you look at what else the apps that you mentioned have in common, it's mainly that they're heavily physics interactions based, right? And that actually can be kind of generalized beyond that, right? Beat Saber is the same way. Beat Saber is a motion-based physics interaction where you're seeing things get sliced up, and the way you slice them is pretty important. I think that violent video games, I'm not going to opine on whether I think it's good or bad. I mean, I play a lot of them. But I think that one of the main things with game design is that in game design, you need some sort of interaction. And one of the easiest ways for two characters to interact is with a gun, because it is a ranged weapon that allows you to interact with other characters at a distance, which ends up kind of playing out throughout all of game design. It's like if you can only interact with things that are very close to your character, that actually limits a lot of the things you can do. Which is why some of the best games, like Final Fantasy, now they've moved to like action. You have like a mix of like close up like melee weapons and ranged combat, so you can kind of do both. You can engage differently with different enemies, units, or other characters that are at different distances from your character. So I think it's almost like a game design problem, is like, how do you create those sorts of interactions in such a way that they're really compelling, really deep, have lots of variety, both visually, sound, etc., and not make it violent. And there's some people who've done it. Beat Saber is a great example.
Yep.
I love Cubism on Quest. There's lots of hand interactions that are really interesting, but I think it's a hard problem. I don't think it's as easy as people like violence, people don't like fun, happy rainbows,
And you can look at someone like Denny from Cloudhead, who's spoken at length about their journey from, Gallery of the Starseed, very much in the vein of, the kind of stuff Penrose is doing, like these beautiful narrative stories. And I think Gallery of the Starseed episode 2 made like no money. They took a major loss on that. And so I recall Denny talking about going back to his team and being like, if we're going to survive, we just need to do what's popular. So they're looking at Beat Saber and music, and they're looking at all the shooting games out there, and they come up with Pistol Whip. And it's like very much a market-based reaction. And, I think he has mixed feelings about the wild success they've had with that versus something like the Gallery. But there's something to be said for still finding a way to respond to the market while doing something that is interesting to your team.
I have a question for everyone, like, because it seems like we've kind of we're talking about like VR now, and really kind of talking about the titles that work on Quest.
Yeah.
And I think there's a question about whether those titles will even work on Apple Vision Pro. Is it okay for them to just be separate? Like to have your VR game console and then have your VR MacBook kind of thing. Like I personally, I think I'm probably of this group the least in the VR world. And so like for me, whenever I think about this, like and think about doing games on it, it's not like how can I compete with like the kind of gaming experiences that are on Quest. It's like what's like a casual game type that's sort of more like mobile games or something like that, or the kind of games I play on my MacBook that fits into this. Oh, I'm gonna be using this thing for work anyway. What's like a game playful experience that I could do in it? Does that make sense?
Let me super quick just put 2 points in. There's an app called DapTap, which in my opinion is the best game so far on the Vision Pro, and it's literally just Beat Saber, except you're using your hands instead of using the blades. But the second one is I don't actually think the Vision Pro is a very good VR headset. I think it's like a pretty bad VR headset, actually. But I think it's the best AR device ever made. And I think that people need to play to the strengths. And I think the Quest 3 is a really good AR headset. But I think that Vision Pro is the best AR headset ever made. And I think that if you want to build stuff, try to think of like what the device does really well. Think about the affordances there. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, I never turn on pass-through mode with Quest 3, partially because if you're in developer mode and you want to have the boundary off, they don't let you keep the pass-through on. But still, I don't get as much benefit from it there as I do here in the Apple Vision Pro. I love turning my little knob and seeing, these beautiful environments. I do that when I'm watching movies or something like that, but it's really convenient to be able to walk around and get stuff done and carry a movie with me while I walk from my office to the kitchen or whatever the case may be. And just echoing what everyone's saying, these devices have different strengths and they don't need to be such direct competitors. You can really, as a developer, be thinking about how to tailor to each one. I talked a little bit earlier as in a few episodes back from this about how I was disappointed to open up Jetpack Joyride and to be like, oh, this is an immersive experience. And it was like kind of cool. It had kind of a job simulator vibe. There's all these like cool little things around you. But I opened up Jetpack Joyride because I wanted to watch HBO and play it while I was watching something on HBO. But anything that's immersive in Apple Vision Pro makes everything else go away.
Yeah.
And that feels like a direct contradiction to playing to the strengths of this device.
Yeah, Kevin
Is
and I were
that kind
talking
of
about.
weird though? Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Fine.
but I guess what like maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but is there really like a a like hardware or capabilities reason that Apple Vision Pro should be bad at video games, or is it just a focus reason? And one, this has always been kind of a long-standing thing in the Apple ecosystem. So I imagine like, a bunch of Apple employees would be like, there probably is some subset of them that feels enraged that people are saying, oh, this isn't going to be a gaming device, just like, all the metal capable, hardware that came before it. I guess my other question is like, well, if they are eschewing gaming and they're saying these are their focus, why does the hardware need to be so good?
Right.
Like is there what is the compelling reason to have this very expensive, very high GPU capable machine? I'd love to hear what people think is the answer. Like, what justifies it?
Well, I think on-premise AI, but that's yeah. I mean, I think that eventually is coming. I do think there will be more. What's that?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think supposedly there's going to be more thoughts at WWDC this year about specifically that. Like not only just the better Siri, which of course is cloud, it's cloud-based in terms of, they send your query to the cloud, but that there will be more on-prem AI. But
there are a couple apps that do that, by the way. The Navi app is an on-device language translation application. So it's not the craziest local AI, but it's doing some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, I think that's one. But going back to kind of Amanda's earlier part of the question, I actually think, I'm of the opinion there's going to be one, max two devices to rule them all when it becomes, mass market. And mass market, I mean like over 100 million users, right? So, and certainly like up to 1 billion users, that it'll be like, I don't know, the Vision Pro, like 4 or 5 probably at this rate. And I do think this is 625 grams. I think it's got to go to like big screen beyond, which is 125 grams, right? Big screen beyond, but not needing a tether. That's just my theory. Maybe 200 grams is fine. But, so I hope it's sooner, by the way, but I don't have super high hopes. But I think when you get to there, the iPhone now is a great, to your point, Amanda, the iPhone now is a great, you can't see me holding my iPhone, but I am, is a great gaming device, right? Like it's running some amazing games. It's running like League of Legends on there and it runs fine.
Resident Evil 8 runs natively on an
Exactly.
iPhone 15 Pro, yeah.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding, exactly. So, I think whatever device does win it, whether it's Vision Pro, whatever, pick your number, I feel like that device will be able to do it all. But it feels like, because this is a dev kit, I guess when they announced it last June, I kept calling it a dev kit, and everyone's like, what do you mean it's a dev kit? And I'm like, well, it's going to sell like, 300,000-400,000 devices in the first year, like max, right? If they sell out, because that's all they can make. That's about, it's a little bit more than what the DK2 was, but not a whole heck of a lot more. What do we sell in the first year? Like, I don't know, tens of thousands, right? So anyway, like I guess the point here is like Apple's telling developers, which is many people here, this is what we want you to use it for, right? Like we're not going to give you controllers, and I'm sure some cool person's going to figure out a way to pair it with some Knuckles or some in-Knuckles controllers. But I think Thrill Seeker on X I found might have even done it already with ALVR, but
kind of,
yeah. I heard kind of, but like yeah, no, I think Apple's telling us. I kind of like it, like I've always loved in fact, the thing I don't like most is this like little battery pack, this little, thing that you got to hold around. I wish it were integrated and lighter at the same time. But yeah, I'm of the opinion that, Apple's just telling developers, like, this is what you want and we want you to use it for. And to be frank, I talked about this with Alex. I think before getting Vision Pro, I was like, oh, we should just port our experiences, right? Now I'm like, I don't want to port our experiences. This is a totally different device, totally different platform. We got to make something brand new for it that plays to this thing's strengths. So anyway. That's my.
I know it's totally my bias, and I'm probably going to have a very minority opinion, but part of me sees this and thinks like it's kind of a shame that there was no gear, like Oculus Go style device was created by Apple, because it almost suggests to me that if somebody had a very good interface or an eye for UI UX, they could have made a very good $200 or so device. And I don't know. I think, to some extent, if this is the use case they want, I'd love to see a sort of smaller, more accessible device be made that's very, specific and concrete, that's going to be the use case, and games with hand track controllers are not.
Mm-hmm. That's great points. Really great points.
Cool. I got to bounce, guys. Great conversation as always. Thanks for hosting, Eugene, and see you all soon.
Good to see you, Alex. Bye.
Woohoo.
See ya.
Yeah. So the maybe the next question, and this maybe plays to the strengths of what Kevin, you guys are doing. So engines. Well, actually, now it sucks that we just lost Alex because I wanted to compare Unreal Engine to Unity and Godot. But of course, there's a lot of talk. Unity has been the main engine for development on Vision Pro. Unreal should get there pretty soon. I mean, I think even in the GitHub in the repos for the engine, we're seeing references to Vision Pro. So hopefully Unreal Engine 5.4, maybe GDC timeframe. I mean, that's just my guess. I don't have no inside info on it. I do know a lot of the folks there, but that's just all guesswork. But yeah, Godot. Tell us about why. I mean, Godot's been a darling of some indie VR developers. It has its challenges as an engine, but what is it like trying to adapt that to Vision Pro?
Yeah, so my motivation for it just came from a lot of the Unity reaction to the Unity pricing stuff that happened. I'm connected to a lot of indie devs that make small games, and a lot of them are old enough to have been burnt by Flash going away, and then they saw the Unity thing happen. So yeah, I was just curious to check in on Godot, and when I did, the quality of the code base was pretty good, and it seemed like a possible little chunk of work to adapt it. And I do know that there's an effort to write a metal renderer for Godot as well. So I think the full immersive experiences are coming pretty quickly to that as well. But I'm both Adam and I are pretty new to the Godot as well. We haven't even tried the XR toolkit for there, so I know. Maybe you guys know. Do you guys know of Quest apps that have shipped with Godot engine that you've played? Like,
I know that it's
I'm super
possible.
curious.
I know that Quest is like a first-class citizen now, as of about I think a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. On Godot,
Yeah.
you could build for Quest, but I don't know of any like store app that was built with Godot.
I don't
Right.
either.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
no.
Google it, but yeah, my pass-through's not great enough to see the screen over there, so I should just use my browser over here. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know of any offhand either. But it's certainly possible. Like I've done some weird little experiments with it. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
in
go for it.
general, it's a little bit of a contradiction, right? It's like this very expensive headset, and we got interested in porting Godot as a lot of the pushback for Unity is what is it, $2,000 a year for a pro license. But in general, I think it's cool to have alternatives, and I think Unity. Yeah, I don't know anyone that works at Unity anymore, but I do sense a lot of discomfort in the community about like how the pace of development for Unity and like what's going on there. So it's cool to join an open source thing and see what can be possible. And yeah, I also know that the creator of Mono is working on an iOS port of Godot. So that's going to run. So eventually you'll just be able to run Godot in Vision Pro, right? I mean, I'm already doing that with the screen mirroring, but then develop. So my dream is just, stay in the headset, do an iOS native game development experience, see how that goes. Obviously, and then, having the UI be based in this older paradigm is one thing, but it's also exciting to imagine like what game creation tools will look like, once they're reimagined for like what you saw with Dreams for PS4, for Vision Pro. Yeah.
Or even something as simple as rec rooms, like little,
Yeah.
I mean, they're very
Yeah.
basic programming, and they have like
For
and
sure.
or XOR gates on there, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, visual programming. And the kids are doing some amazing things with it. for
So
sure.
Godot's
For
got
sure.
this really cool feature. They've got an Android port now that I believe the Android port went public about a year ago. And you can build for Android on Android while using the editor in Android. I think that both
Nice.
iOS and Vision are going to have this massive limitation in which the compilation tools are limited to Xcode on a Mac. So you're either going to need some sort of cloud-based compilation or you're going to need to have a tethered Mac. So even if you're doing all the editing in the headset, all the playing in the headset, I don't see you compiling on the headset until maybe they update Vision OS to support Mac apps, which I don't think is off the table. But as of right now, I don't see a good path towards that personally.
Yeah, luckily, a lot of game development happens, like in Godot, happens with like scripting language, for example, that you can do a live update pattern as you're developing. But yeah, I hear you that if you're doing more native code stuff, it's not an actual development platform yet, the headset, right? But
Speaking of-
yeah, it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting once that's true. But in the meantime, I think you'll be able to accomplish a ton of game dev in the headset very soon, which we'll see. We'll see if it feels good, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to try.
From my perspective, so I guess it was like 4 months ago. We were working on just iOS stuff, and I was like, well, I want to learn a game engine because I didn't really, played around a bunch, and poked around. And as a newbie, I found Godot really accessible because I think there's a kind of a trade-off there between like power and accessibility. Getting started with something, and maybe like I don't know if you're like trying to think of like popular VR games that have been shipped. Maybe there's not any, but like maybe a big part of the appeal of doing Godot is that there is like a thriving indie scene. So maybe you're not going to pick it up if your like aspiration is to build, a really popular game that's going to be across all platforms, and that's already what you're shooting to do. But if you're like just learning game dev, it's a really good start. And like having being able to build for Vision Pro with the easy engine, I guess, like the accessible engine, I think is exciting. And especially if you're thinking about like the games that we're building right now are not immersive experiences. It's more like, well, like it is fun to use this device just to play, just to put a screen in front of you and use a PS5 controller. But maybe there's like a space between with these kind of volumetric displays, and that's what we've been working on recently. Is like, so then it's not that different from a 2D game or a 2D screen, but then you have the depth, and you have basically a 3D mouse. You have a 3D cursor, which is different. I don't think that really exists on any other platform. So yeah, I like Godot's been exciting because we started trying to build stuff with RealityKit, like Swift UI and RealityKit, and you find out really quickly that like you can make some stuff happen, but as soon as you start trying to do any kind of gamey logic, you hit a wall. You could build everything from scratch, but then if you can just build in Godot, you can like use like built-in enemy navigation, pathfinding, stuff like that. All these things that like you'd have to figure out otherwise.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Apple really pushes forward with RealityKit in terms of being a competitive game engine.
I don't
it'll
think
be
they
interesting to
will.
see what they do. Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard to imagine.
to do it with SceneKit, and they didn't.
True.
But
Yeah. I mean, well, that's why they have these integrations, and I'm sure more will be coming. But I also see the Godot thing is interesting because it's like Blender became good in the last 10 years or so, and part of that is like it's easier to interconnect in remote work. I think open source has sort of been ascendant in that way for specific creative tools, and I do think Godot is on a good trajectory for that. Yeah.
Obviously,
today-
engines are like super critical to make like a lot of the apps, and in VR, it's been really useful. Obviously, almost every single app on Quest is either Unreal or Unity, but we have one of the leading VR native devs like here in the call. It's Amanda, and she's been working on stuff without an engine, and she's building really, really cool stuff. And so my question to you, Amanda, is when you look at like the comparison between what's available natively on Quest with the native Android tools and what Quest has, and compare that to like the deep native tools that have been ported from iOS. Obviously, it's still a little limited, but a lot of the stuff from iOS has been ported to Vision. Do you think that there's going to be a difference in what native dev looks like and the output of what native developers do between the two platforms?
Well, I haven't developed for Vision Pro yet, so I won't have a totally informed opinion, but I think classically what you would say is it's the difference between just having game developers on your platform and also having mobile developers on your platform. People that are used to like the iOS framework might consider that more accessible, and some people would point to that being, well, it's not just going to be like these techie gamey people, it's going to be artists too, and it's going to be people that focus on non-gaming products, and that makes a lot of people's eyes light up. And yeah, I think it'd be great to have both. I think it's really interesting to see who sticks around in the ecosystem and who builds the best content.
Yeah, I think we might get a Bank of America app on the Vision Pro before we get it on the Quest. Is probably going to be my guess.
there
That's
something
a
holding you
great
back?
benchmark. It's like we're gonna get a Bank of America app before we get, this game and this thing, and
Before we get Beat Saber, we're getting B of A.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, straight up.
Amanda, is there something holding you back from developing on Vision Pro? Is it just time?
yeah,
Like, haven't gotten to it?
MacBook.
Interesting.
I need to get a new computer, but
Gotcha.
yeah, maybe soon.
So yeah, I'd love to hear the thoughts of what it is to be doing that. I mean, it's incredible what you can do when you develop that way versus doing it via the engines. I mean, there's pros and cons. There's different development stacks, but maybe going to like the Unreal side and the Unity side, comparing that to Godot and comparing it to native development, and maybe we can compare it to native development on the Quest. Is like, okay, so Mac Unreal development like sucks, right? Like I think we can. So love to all my friends at Epic, but it's just like we've been doing VR dev with ARKit on Mac since 2017, right? So we had all these, and that was like sending our engineers, who would do dev normally on PC. It was like going to purgatory or something, right? To go to the little iMacs on the corner, the most powerful at the time, and trying to get them to do stuff. And first off, it's like, there's so many things that suck with it. The first is, like the IDE, right? So you have Xcode, which is just, god awful for Unreal. Sure, you have VS Code, which is not great for Unreal, better than Xcode, but that's kind of complicated integration. But let's say you get that. You have no Visual Studio integration on Mac. And then just generally, if you get all that working after a lot of time, it's like the whole thing just doesn't work a lot of times. There's much more crashes. There's much more like issues. And, the Unreal code base is already pretty big as it is, right? The engine often has bugs when it gets released that, you have to go in and literally recompile the engine after changing a line of code, somewhere like 2 million lines of code down, and you find, one line that you change, and then you recompile, and you're recompiling on this Mac that usually at that time certainly was underpowered relative to PCs. I think the story is different now. So I guess from a dev perspective, I saw a lot of nods, so I'm guessing people have experiences with this. So like from a dev perspective, first off, like these engines, I mean, you have Godot that's on the rise, but I do think it's going to be like a decade long story, right? Like, I mean, I'm very bullish on Godot, but I feel like that's just going to take a long time. So right now we basically have Unreal and Unity, right? I mean, no one in the public is going to be, on Frostbite or these other engines that actually run fine in VR, right? Even CryEngine runs fine in VR. It's a great CryEngine games, but it's just not available to the public. The question I have for folks is, these tools, they're not great now, but it's really hard to like have a new engine, to develop a brand new engine with a new code base that takes multiple decades. So I don't know, is there answers here, or is it just like more pain for developers in the times to come, right, as we try to develop these tools?
Economic incentives are everything. I think that VR and AR devices have not been a huge part of the market share, so engine devs have not spent time on it. And as that changes, I think that we'll see the experience change. It might be much easier in just the next few years, is my thought.
I hope so. Cross fingers. What about you guys? I mean, do we foresee the rise of like a brand new engine? And also, like, I know Rust, you can program in Rust in Godot, right? Even though it's not like there's like a Rust plugin or something. I don't know. Is that good for game development, like that specific language, or do we foresee something else, more akin to what you were talking about earlier?
I think it goes to what Adam was saying. There's definitely a subset of indie devs that enjoy. Like, I know for myself, it would be frustrating if I'm working on a Unity project. We were trying to ship a documentary, and like you hit a Unity bug, and you gotta get some time from the Unity engineers to fix something. Or at one point, we were shipping documentaries that were like on a branch of Unity that they maintained specifically for us, just for like 6 months, because there were a different set of bugs that we couldn't adopt from the new stuff, and so being able to go down to the source and just read it is important. I don't know. I think I agree that economic incentives are
What, you didn't
huge
pay
here.
like however much money for Unity source?
This was pre that, I think, or
60,000 a year is what
Yeah.
I remember last time, and maybe that's per
Oh,
seat.
okay.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think we're lucky to have contacts, but at the same time, I don't think we even wanted to dive into the Unity source. I mean, I think anyway, but
yeah.
good point.
And programming wise, I think it's undeniable that there's probably only going to be a few huge, because these are just such massive experience making software projects. So there's only going to be a few, but it's just cool. It's also cool to have the stuff bubbling up underneath, and programming languages are a big one. I know, like I'm part of a couple different programming language betas that people are making programming languages, trying to unseat C++ or the things people use to make Unreal and Unity. And it's cool to see the velocity people can achieve, but it's small. It's years out. It's definitely coming. And again, for me, it comes back to what is it like to reimagine the UI? What is it like to reimagine the UI for these more spatial environments? Because we're still just, I can look at Blender in this headset, but it's not super fun to use. Yeah.
I said this last time, but I would love to hear from folks. Do you guys like working in this headset? Because I legit don't. Like, I love this experience, like chatting with folks. To me, it's so far. Like, I thought the killer app would be looking at my Mac and seeing the big screen, but I've actually found FaceTime personas to be the most useful thing, to be frank, right? Like, I talk to my team, like legit business calls, whatever. You don't have to do your hair and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. Yeah, you can literally just roll out of bed and have your scanned self, and but that's not even the biggest thing. I think just having a shared space has been good, and it just feels more present than the Zoom call. But yeah, I don't know. People like working on this thing. Like I legit like my regular desktop for the record here so far. But yeah, what are
I hear
things?
really different things from different people, and I think for me personally,
Mhm.
what if all I have to do is focus on VR elements in the headset, I can do it for a long time. But if I'm ever trying to like squint to see something and pass through, I personally start getting uncomfortable and my eyes strain kind of quickly, and then I don't want to be in the experience very much anymore, which is a shame because I don't like that about myself. Maybe I'll get used to it.
So when I used a MacBook, and I just had a MacBook with me and I was portable, the experience was pretty good because instead of having to crane your neck down to look at the MacBook, you can be in a more ergonomic position and you basically are getting the exact same experience. You get the same one screen that you have with the MacBook, but you get a really big one and you get the same inputs. I thought that was pretty good. I think that in the situations where I've tried to use the headset in place of my desk, so I've tried it at my home office and my office at work. In both cases, I dislike that experience. Number one, because I have nice monitors in both of those places, nicer at home than I have at work, but they're still both really nice. But second, because placing the physical monitor, placing the virtual monitor, it like conflicts with where my real monitor is, which causes depth violations, and that doesn't feel good, which means then I have to be in immersive mode, which that limits a lot of the benefits of just being able to be in this headset at all. And then I would say, though, with a Magic Trackpad, which I have now, and a keyboard, the experience feels pretty good if you have an open and comfortable setup where you can put both of them and either sit down or stand and use both of those. But I'm finding that in my house, I don't have that. I don't have a kitchen island. My desk at my office has the giant monitor on it, so I don't have an open space for that. I don't have my like dining table has a bunch of stuff on it right now. So there's basically no place where I can comfortably use this experience. On the couch with you guys, I kind of have that going on, but it's still like a little weird because the Magic Trackpad doesn't have a good spot. So I think the answer is like, there are situations where it's good, but in general, if you have a nice setup otherwise, you're probably going to want to use the nice setup. But I think as time goes on, a lot of people don't have setups as nice as us, and this really could be a better experience than what they have access to. Maybe not this generation, but maybe next generation or the generation after that. So I think that's interesting to kind of experience what users are going to be doing more and more frequently as time goes on.
Yeah, I'm super curious. The keyboard aspect for me is like that the keyboard we have in the Vision Pro is what we have is the best that they could ship in the couple years that it's been in development is interesting. But that's the thing that I miss. Like I want to be able to walk around, but if I want to do desktop work mirrored to the Vision Pro, like you have to have the keyboard there. It's fun to imagine like a couple years out what gloves or just more hand tracking or more, I don't know what you call it, corded keyboard to what people do, because for me that's the biggest piece with work that just doesn't work, that doesn't it's more like an iPad and less like a desktop for sure. Yeah.
The two things that I think really make it unusable for like moving and working is the fact that the OS doesn't have like a body locked option for like Windows. Like
Yeah,
I would
that's a
want
good
the
point.
Windows to just stay there while I walk around, and then the keyboard only picks up your index fingers and doesn't let you use all 10 of your fingers. I think if both of those things could happen, so the keyboard is locked like chest level and the windows are locked, I could imagine myself going on walks and just like doing some ambient computing while I'm walking around my neighborhood. But because it doesn't do that, I don't know. There's just lots of situations where you just can't use this device, and that sucks. And I hope that changes in the near future.
Yeah. I think the keyboard, I've found that I really hated the keyboard to start. It's still not usable, but I do think that there is a certain amount of practice. Like I've definitely gotten a lot. I don't hate it as much anymore. Like at least if I'm just doing something, I don't want to program with it for sure. But Twitter or whatever, no problem for me now. And at first I felt like very, very uncomfortable doing it. And then as far as using it as using the monitor, one thing, Nima, do you do when you do the immersive mode, if you're like having that screen conflict, do you just do like halfway, or do you do like
Yeah, there's a couple things I do. Oftentimes, I just push through the depth violation because like I work on 3D displays, so I'm used to depth
You're used to
violations, and
it?
it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, ideally it shouldn't be there, but it's not a big of a deal. Sometimes I'll just bring the screen right up closer, like right in front of my real world monitor, and that solves the problem. But then the monitor is a little
It's
bit
too
closer
close.
than I wish it was.
Yeah.
It's still fine. It's just I wish I could put it further back. And then other times I put it in immersive mode. So I do all three of those depending on what the situation is and what I feel like.
Yeah. I've found that it's sorry, go ahead, Eugene.
Oh yeah, well, I was going to mention something about this exact thing. So one thing I've noticed, well, first off, right now I have my real monitor to monitor the stream, and then I've got this, and it is causing definitely some eye strain. So just as a note, right? Like I wish I could just have the stream in here, but there's no app to do that. The other thing is I'm doing this right now. I'm going to do this in real time. So I did this on a work call yesterday where I'm just pulling you with me. I don't know if you can tell I'm walking, but I'm like literally left my desk and I'm now walking. From what I understood from my colleagues yesterday, they didn't know that I was walking. It just looked like I was.
It looks like you're
walking
walking.
around. It does, yeah. So you saw like the
you're
bounce.
kind of bobbing
Yeah.
around,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a
yeah.
bob. Yeah.
But the thing is, as long as I keep my fingers together, I can carry you all with me, right? So
Sure, and
going
I
up
think
some
that's
stairs
a somewhat usable experience. I wouldn't do that on a walk. Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to move around your house, that's fine. I would not leave the house holding the windows like that
I
because
agree.
it
Yeah, you
won't
should
work
be able
for
to
me.
lock it somehow.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Right.
definitely agree.
But the screen for me, I've gotten more used to it. I still when I take it off and look at my monitors, I'm like, oh, okay, like that's actually better. And I think this is probably specific to like what we're doing, and I don't want to get too lost in the developer experience, because the normal way of using this is not to be building something for it, and so it's convenient to not take it off. So you're coding in it so that you can then see the thing that you're building in it. But like because that's what we're doing, I think I'm wearing it more, and I do feel like my eyes have adjusted a bit. Like I felt pretty uncomfortable with like yesterday. I probably wore it for 2 hours straight, looking at Xcode and Godot, and felt okay. Like my eyes felt okay. But the big thing for me is with the screen, with the depth thing, the depth conflict. I turn the immersive on just a little bit, just for the first, like just so that cone in front of me. And so then the screen is floating in the immersive space. And then I was actually saying to Kevin, it's like, I'm actually not, I'm like, I guess not that good of a typer, because I still, I definitely cheat sometimes. And if I have full, like have the immersive zone past my hands, I'll at some point be like, oh, I got to look down. So I just have it like right there. So it's just, it's like my screen is in front of the mountain, and then I'm still in my space. And that seems to work pretty well.
So there's an app on Quest called Fluid, which is like an immersive workspace. And the cool thing they do is it's fully immersive, but you can have a cutout of reality. So they have just a cutout for where your keyboard and mouse is. And I would love to see that feature in Vision OS, like the ability to just punch out just your keyboard and mouse so you can see those in reality, but the rest of it's immersive. That'd be pretty cool. And maybe do the same thing with your monitor or like whatever other your drink. I don't know if you have like a cup holder on your desk, punch out that one little window so that you never knock your drink over on accident. I think those would be really cool features to be OS wide.
I think we're I think we're going to be coming to the end of our time. I feel like I could do this forever, but just, respecting the schedules of folks. But I wanted to maybe, like, in the last few minutes, I know you just said, Adam, that you don't want to go too deep on the developer side, but, this is the forum to do it, right? I'd love, as developers, we got Kevin, Adam, Amanda, Nimaz, you're very technical for a product manager type. I would say, as somebody, as Michael said earlier. But yeah, anything like on that topic, like deep dev on, I know you have experience on Quest, at least Amanda, just like what are the big challenges that are afoot, and feel free to get as technical as you'd like, right? I'd love to, maybe we'll start with you, Amanda, and then we'll go
Sure. I think one of the things that stops a lot of people is how difficult it is to build user interfaces. It's interesting how many people stop developing because they realize a menu is going to be a lot of work, especially if you're a native developer, because if you're coming from iOS or Android, the framework to put in some kind of UI is very important. So that's for native development. Quest has never really had a UI framework that's fully capable other than the VR app framework. So that's one challenge I can think of right off the top of my head.
Makes sense.
Do you think that it's better from what, like, if you haven't done any development for the Vision Pro, but do you think that the fact that you can just build in Swift UI is like a solution to that?
Yeah, if native development lets you just build a Swift UI, I think that is a solution.
Yeah.
Is it true? I've heard that there's a bunch of Quest developers making frosted glass UI now. Is that happening?
Oh no!
I even saw someone doing a framework. This is
when
I
get to find out whether John Carmack's paying attention.
We should mention him.
Yeah, I would say just as a developer experience, the Swift UI stuff is pretty good and builds on all the React momentum from web development. And I was super skeptical at first, but in general, it's been super nice. It's very easy to develop UI for the Vision Pro, and like they did a pretty good job of just mapping all the concepts. And then there's weirdness around, like, we're doing volumes, and so there's a lot of weirdness around volumes right now. Like, you're making an immersive game or a non-immersive game, a shared space game. When things go off the boundary, they're just gone, right? You don't get sort of debugging things that are missing, or even like the language for visual cues for people. Like, there's more content past the bounds of your volume or something. We're working on what that looks like. I'm curious to see what different paradigms come up with that stuff visually. But developer wise, yeah, for me, I first checked in on iOS platforms like years ago, and it was like people would spend like too much time getting things signed and all that stuff. But it seems like Apple has really like made the experience a lot better, and it's been pretty easy so far to work in. I would say the Swift is also nice as a developer. It's like pretty okay. It's like a native enough programming language and low level enough that it's there's not a ton of like games frameworks for it, but in general it's like a sane set of defaults to develop in, so that's what we've been working in, and it'll be cool to see what happens there as well, because I know there was a fair amount of like iOS game development happening in Swift.
Are we losing Kevin?
Oh no!
Oh no! Poor connection. All right. He was saying interesting stuff. Well, let me, Adam, I'd love to go to you, but I mean, let me know if this analogy makes, like, where does this analogy hold and where does it break down, right? So, like Steve Jobs, is the whole story of him finding the mouse, right? Like he discovered a mouse somewhere. I forgot where it was, in like Xerox Park or something. Yeah, one of those places. And he was like, oh, this is it, right? And it was for like the Apple IIe or, one of those, the Lisa or something like that. And maybe it was even earlier. But the thing that was interesting about that was, like, do we feel like it's the equivalent of the mouse has yet to be created, or is that a bad, like, where is that analogy bad, or where does that work? Where is that at? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You guys aren't going to believe this. I could be wrong about this, but I think Valve just launched their new headset.
What? The Deckard? You're talking about Deckard, right?
Go to valveprism.com. This could be a fake, but it looks real. valveprism.com.
They made
It
a new
looks
website for it.
it is a standalone. It is Deckard. It is a
Deckard.
standalone PC VR headset.
What?
This is wow. During FaceTime, welcome to the future, motherfuckers. Holy shit. Valveprism.com. These
And
Valve.
Nima, you
Valve,
just
I
got us
love these guys.
demonetized. You just got us demonetized on YouTube, but all good. Not that
my bad. My bad. Is that true? If you swear, you get demonetized?
Yeah, so their AI goes through the thing, and if they see a swear word, your video is demonetized.
Damn
Not that
it,
we have
dude.
that many. Yeah, it's
I
Holy
am
shit.
so sorry. I had no idea.
I'm sorry. Oh gosh.
well, we don't have like any viewers on YouTube, so the monetization doesn't like you need like obviously hundreds of thousands of views before you get like a penny. So we're not there. But yes.
Wow, here's a whole other headset that we gotta buy now. I love this.
Yeah, let's see
this
it.
is
Valve
so
Prism.
cool. This is so cool.
Jaw-dropping clarity. Where'd you hear about this? Where'd you hear about this on X or?
I got a text message during this call, and I checked the text
Jeez.
message in the Vision, and this was the link. And I
Holy
thought
cow.
it was a joke, but I thought I'd tell you guys, and it looks pretty real. I think it's
Yeah.
happening.
It's awesome, man.
$1,300.
Well, obviously, I get the 1 terabyte to match my Vision Pro, even though it's less than half the price of the Vision Pro. That's crazy.
Yeah, I got the 1 terabyte too, but I don't know if that was a
Yeah,
mistake or not.
it's real because I just clicked a link that went to valvesoftware.com, which I think is a real website, and
Yeah.
it has it.
Wow.
I mean, maybe
This
it's
is
not.
legitimately insane. Oh my god. This is so crazy.
This is awesome.
I am so happy that with this I can probably just get rid of my gaming PC for VR because I have a dedicated VR PC with a Vive Pro 2. I think I'm probably just gonna get rid of it and go with the Valve Prism instead.
I'm curious.
Wow.
I'm curious. Anyone here do full body tracking? Like, do you guys? Because like right now, the lighthouses are still the best way to do that. So, what would
I
you-
have I do. I have I have all of the Tundra trackers.
Yeah,
I
same.
just got the VR Chat limited edition straps. If you saw those,
I have them. I have the full set, the 11.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I've
had them since last year.
I got them shipped to a. Oh no! You know, there's a new version of them. So you have you have the original version, the V1s.
I think so,
the
yeah.
new ones are different colors. Yours are what color are they?
They're purple. They're purple.
Right.
Chat
I
edition.
think the new ones are blue.
Uh huh.
So,
Okay.
anyways, I got them shipped to a different address. I haven't picked them up yet, but
Yeah.
I haven't actually set up. I have all the equipment. I haven't actually set up an avatar to do it or any of that stuff yet. But I'm really excited to start doing that.
Yeah, most avatars work well in it. Yeah, my wife and I during COVID, we would go in and do full body tracking for like the VR chat parties and stuff because we couldn't go out, obviously. So, yeah, that's cool. That's a cool thing.
That's so sick.
Yeah, that's where I learned
What-
that. Yeah,
What a way to end this episode, though, huh? Valve Prism just surprise drops.
that's incredible. So yeah, what do we all think about this? I mean, we've been waiting for Deckard for such a long time, right? That was a code name, by the way, for the viewers who are listening for this new headset. What are our thoughts?
Built-in iron face tracking, automatic IPD adjustment, foveated rendering. This is it. This is what the weebs have been waiting for, as they say.
It's wonderful to have multiple companies' approaches to talk about.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, totally agree.
Definitely agree. Oh, that's cool. That has eye tracking. So does it have mouth tracking too? Face tracking. Okay.
Jaw, teeth, and tongue tracking. It's
So-
the kind of thing that Apple doesn't show in their marketing for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, it's way more tech oriented.
Yeah.
Wow, 32 gigs of RAM. How many gigs of RAM does the Vision Pro have? I think it's
24.
only 16, right? 24.
24
Okay.
unified memory. Yeah, on the M2 chip.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, this one's it's an APU, so it's unified on the Prism too.
What's
But
the
yeah,
what's
it's 32 versus
32? Uh-huh.
yeah, 24. APU
Nice.
power 7 to 35 watts. Wow, it actually goes pretty low. That's pretty awesome. Holy crap, the resolution is more than the Vision Pro.
No way.
Am I getting? Yeah. 3840 by 3552 per eye. This is crazy. 5,000 nits peak brightness. This is
Do
insane.
they have a hardware partner?
Why would you even want 5,000 nits, right? On the eye.
I
Like
want
in
to
here?
go blind
I
in a
like
headset. That is what I want.
Oh man. That's crazy.
Inside out tracking and compatible with SteamVR 1.0 and 2.0. This is insane. Oh my god. Thank you, Gaben. Thank you, Gaben.
How much does it weigh? Does it have a weight on it?
850 grams. So it is
that's so heavy.
heavier than the Vision Pro. But look at it; it looks really balanced. As long as it's actually balanced. I mean, the Index wasn't exactly the lightest headset, but it was the most comfortable.
Isn't Index Index is around Vision Pro, right? But better balanced. Isn't Index like 600-700 grams?
Yep.
So this is going to be 800 grams on your face. Jeez, I mean, like I love it. Like I'm totally gonna get it, obviously, but I'm just like, I don't know if I want to wear 800 grams. Like I'm excited about my big screen beyond, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like I did the face scan, and after Vision Pro, like literally, I was like, the thing I said is I want 120 grams on my face. I want to see what that feels like, right?
So I just bought the big screen Beyond can, and I thought to myself, buying this can is me committing to getting a big screen Beyond as soon as I really feel like I want to get it. But no, I'm just gonna get the Prism. Sorry, big screen. Sorry, Darshan. I love you, man. You did a great job. But
oh man, you better hope it's not fake at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah. Is this real?
Yeah, who knows?
This is real.
I mean, we're gonna see people talking about it, but if this is a goof, this is like the craziest goof of all time. Like it's really, really, really specific. It's really well done. If this is like an early, if this is like an early, like April Fool's joke, this is like the craziest April Fool's joke of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it's all over social right now. Social media is blowing up on Valve Prism as of like 50 minutes ago or so. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Awesome way to end.
Who here is going to get one? By the way, raise your hand if you're going to get a Valve Prism. So
I'm raising both hands.
Of course.
He's going to get two.
I'm still reading the specs.
Especially if it is like a they talked about SteamOS 3. This could be a full Linux computer on your face.
Yeah.
So this is kind of crazy. If the Quest is an Android computer on your face, and this is a Vision OS iOS computer on your face, if that's a Linux computer on your face, that's that's amazing. That's like gonna be really, really, really cool.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
Linux computer that can run all the Windows games too, right?
Exactly.
I
And
might
Windows
get it
and
for
regular
the
Windows
developer
software.
opportunities alone.
Well, you got to get a Mac, right? So we can get on this.
No,
right?
I'm a Linux developer, so if this is Linux, it's perfect. Let's do this.
Oh no, Vision Pro has lost. Apple has lost.
Send me a MacBook, Apple.
Awesome, friends. Well, I mean, this is a great, exciting way to end. Thanks, everybody. Any last thoughts? Anything anybody wants to jump in on before we close the space?
Thank you for organizing this. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank
I love
you.
these conversations. This is awesome. Yeah, I love hearing about what people are developing, and it's always a pleasure to chat. So thanks very much. Keep on chugging. We'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
Take
See ya.
care. Bye-bye.